I heard this phrase the other day: be an expert at being an expert. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, bingo, this had to be a podcast because this speaks to parenting. This speaks to leadership at work. This speaks to how life should unfold. That there is a general mindset that's accepted and not really challenged out there that I didn't really even know or even think about. But there's one that when you leave school for the last time and you graduate college, maybe your first, when you get your undergraduate and maybe you swore off ever getting your master's or your doctorate, and you're like, yes, the learning is done. I'm off to go off into the real world. But really, the learning never stops. And what do I mean by that? I think there is this false mindset within our society and culture of really just anywhere in the Western world that learning stops after you leave school. And I think it's just because you're in a building where you're there to learn, that this is the only place where learning can happen. But nothing further could be from the truth. Because to me, life is the giant school of life. I learned more in my 4 years in the Marine Corps about life in the world than I ever would have learned 4 years in school. And to me, that was my college. That gave me a depth and wisdom to the world to see it with a lens that I had never been able to see. And I would have never been able to see it unless I went and did it. So I want to challenge this idea that learning stops when you leave school. I want to give you a couple of different challenges. One, ask yourself, when's the last time you read a book? Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably listening to other podcasts. And if you were listening to other podcasts, you were probably listening to interview podcasts. And if you were probably listening to interview podcasts, you're probably learning something. So think about why you listen to podcasts. It's because you want to learn something. It's because you want to be an expert in something. And I want to challenge also, where are you not learning that you need to? And I think one of those first areas that I know I had to go to in my life, this genesis of the podcast, comes from a deep sense of not being capable to lead my family and my kids into this world because I was incapable of leading myself. I had to learn to be an expert at parenting. Now, I did that by listening to podcasts, listening and reading books, filling my ears on the way to work with a bunch of knowledge. But then I forgot this other angle. You have to apply it. And I've heard it said that we don't have a knowledge problem in 2021. We have an application problem in 2021, that people learn a lot, but they don't actually apply it. Now I want to turn the dial just slightly to get us in a different angle. What makes an expert an expert? It's kind of an interesting question. The definition of an expert is a person who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge of or skill in a particular area. And so when I first heard become an expert at becoming an expert, that essentially is this lifelong process where you take the skills that you're not very good at and you try to grow them and become an expert in them. Now, I think there's a downside to this because you can try to be an expert of many things, but I don't think you need to be an expert of many things. You need to pick a few disciplines that you know are close to the season of life that you're in, that support you and ground you in the season of life that you're in, that will give you the best chance of success in the season of life you are in, and become a generalist in all the different areas where you need general life adulting skills, changing a tire, learning how your car works, doing those other areas. You don't have to be an expert in your car, is not what I'm saying. But I want you to take an inventory of where you need to be an expert, but you haven't taken the initiative to grow. Or maybe you were in the beginning of this journey and you're realizing, I'm not really remembering that life and learning happen through continuous exploration of life. It's not something that ends when we walk off college campus. It's something that happens continually throughout life. And as a leader, one of the worst things a leader could say is, I know everything I need to know, so I'm just going to be done. That the version of me is the version I'm always going to be. To me, that speaks to that you're a fixed person, not capable of growth. And I am a big believer in the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, if you're familiar with the Carol Dweck book, Growth Mindset. But I really want you just to think, what areas are you not becoming an expert in? maybe look at why. Sometimes these areas are fear that we don't want to become something because maybe we know. Sometimes these areas where we're afraid to go, like this example in my case, I feel my delay in this journey was more about reaching my full potential, and that really scared me. So it was best just to stay where I was meant to be. So really look at, why haven't I done it? Maybe you've thought about it and you've just kind of sat on the fence post. What's preventing you from jumping off? And again, how can we become an expert at becoming an expert? And I'll be back again with you on Monday.